Hi there, legal writers. Welcome to this Legal Grammar Redux video series with me, Jill Barton, from the University of Miami School of Law. In this video series, I am covering 12 grammar topics, which you can see in more depth in chapters 19 through 21 in the handbook for the new legal writer. Those topics are listed here. They include 8 grammar basics and 4 more advanced grammar principles, which we are starting to dive into with this video, starting with advanced grammar principle number 1, and that is the active voice. The rule that we will follow in dealing with active versus passive voice is that in general, as a legal writer, you should prefer the active voice. So let's break down the difference between active voice and passive voice. Active voice has an actor as the main subject, and then the main verb is the action that that subject is doing. So here we have the judge overruling the objection. We have the actor, the judge, and the action, the verb, overruled. The passive voice is a correct grammatical form. This is not wrong, but there are some issues with it, and that's why we prefer the active voice. So in the passive voice, we have an object being acted upon by an actor who may or may not be named in the sentence. In this example, we have the objection, that's what happened, was overruled, a wordier passive voice verb phrase, by the judge. The subject is in that prepositional phrase at the end of the sentence. You can also omit the subject in that sentence and just say the objection was overruled. So we see some issues with the passive voice just in that example. First, we don't have the actor in that second version of the sentence, so it's a little bit vague, a little unclear. Obviously, it's wordier than using that direct active voice as well, because we might add that actor in the prepositional phrase, and we have that longer verb phrase. So there are some reasons, though, when you might want to use the passive voice. For example, if the actor isn't important to your sentence. So the clerk was shot. Perhaps you don't know who shot the clerk, or you don't want to emphasize who shot the clerk. In that previous example, maybe you want to focus on the objection rather than the actual fact that the judge was doing the action. You might want to deflect attention away from the actor in a sentence. It could be a reason why you use passive voice. For example, if you are a defense counsel and you're representing someone accused of something, maybe you use the passive voice there to talk about what happened in that case. Then the guard was stabbed. We don't need to know in this sentence who did that stabbing or allegedly did that stabbing. We leave that out of this version of that sentence. So if you want to focus on something else in the sentence, for example, if you want to focus on the object here, a mistake, you can use the passive voice to focus on that. Who made the mistake isn't really the focus of the sentence or what this writer wants to focus on. They want to focus on the mistake and then describing that mistake. So it allows you to shift the focus, shift the emphasis in your sentence. And then finally, if you're talking about what happened in a case, for example, and you want to talk about that action, the object, rather than who did it. For example, if a judge or a jury convicted a defendant of something, you can shift the focus in that way as well. In general, though, we are going to prefer the active voice for the reasons we've already discussed. It's more direct, it's less wordy, and it shows your reader exactly what you are talking about. There are reasons, of course. Mistakes were made is a common phrase by politicians. We don't know who made the mistake. Perhaps the politician is admitting to the mistake, but this allows the writer or the speaker to deflect attention away from the actor. So in determining whether you should use active voice or passive voice, we will follow 3 steps. First, we want to identify whether we have active voice or passive voice. If we have passive voice, we want to change that wording to active voice just to check, make sure that passive voice is really what we want. In this way, we can ensure that our writing is focusing on using active voice as much as possible. So to identify the active voice, you would look for a wordier verb phrase. It could be was answered, has been answered. It's a wordier verb phrase than if we just had that active action verb answer. You might also have a wordier prepositional phrase showing who that actor was. So if the question was answered by the defendant, that could be added on to the end of the sentence. So in this way, we can find active voice in our writing and self-edit ourselves by looking for a wordier verb phrase and also maybe even that wordier prepositional phrase showing the actual actor in a sentence. If you identify passive voice in your writing, go ahead and, at least in your mind, and switch it to the active voice so we can check to see if it's better. And that just takes the actor, hopefully, if you know who the actor is, puts the actor back at the front of the sentence, acting as the main subject. So here we have the defendant answered the question. And then you can ask yourself, is this a better version? Is the defendant answered the question what you want to say? Or do you want to say the question was answered? Maybe even leaving off the defendant. Is there a reason for that? Do you want to focus on the question? Do you not want to emphasize the actor? Most of the time, though, the active voice is going to be more direct, less wordy, and show the action, show what you're trying to say much better than the passive voice. So in general, we'll follow these 3 steps to self-edit our work, but we will prefer the active voice in general, unless there's a reason not to use the active voice. I want to end by telling you that everyone can be a great legal writer. You are following the right steps toward that path by just watching these videos, and I hope to see you next time.